Most weak villains fail because they are written as evil first and human second. They want power, they want revenge, they laugh in the dark, but the audience does not feel them. A real villain is scarier than that. A real villain believes they are right. They carry wounds, they make excuses, they have rules. They can be kind to one person and destroy another without blinking. If you want to write villains that feel real, you have to go beyond good and evil. The first mistake writers make is treating villain like a personality. Villain is not a personality, it is a role in the story. A villain can be charming, quiet, religious, funny, polite, broken, brilliant, cowardly, or loving. What makes them dangerous is not that they are evil every second. What makes them dangerous is the choice they keep making when something gets in their way. A believable villain usually has a wound, not an excuse, a wound. Something happened to them, or something was denied to them, or something inside them was never healed. But here is the important part. The wound does not make them innocent. It explains the pressure underneath their choices. A real villain takes pain and turns it outward. They make the world pay for something the world may not even remember doing. Do not stop the story just to explain the villain's tragic past. Show the wound through behavior. Maybe they cannot tolerate disrespect. Maybe they collect things because they once had nothing. Maybe they test loyalty because betrayal shaped them. Maybe they control every room because they grew up powerless. The audience does not need a speech right away. They need patterns. Patterns reveal psychology. The strongest villains do not just want something. They believe something. They believe the world is corrupt, or weak, or unfair, or that love is ownership, or that fear is the only honest language. Once your villain has a belief system, every cruel thing they do starts to feel connected. They are not random anymore. They are following a dark logic, and dark logic is what makes a villain feel real. A flat villain is wrong about everything. A real villain is usually right about one uncomfortable thing. Maybe society did ignore them. Maybe the hero is hypocritical. Maybe the town really is hiding a secret. Maybe the system really did fail. That does not justify what the villain does, but it creates tension because the audience can understand the wound without agreeing with the cure. Real people are full of contradictions, and your villains should be too. A villain might be cruel to strangers, but gentle with animals. They might lie to everyone, but keep one promise for 20 years. They might commit terrible acts and still believe family matters. Contradiction does not weaken a villain, it deepens them. It makes the audience feel like there is a real person behind the threat. One of the creepiest things you can do is give the villain a moment of kindness. Not fake kindness, real kindness. Let them help an old woman cross the street. Let them feed a stray dog. Let them remember someone's birthday. Then later, let the audience see what they are capable of. That contrast is disturbing because it reminds us that monsters do not always look like monsters. A villain with rules is more memorable than a villain who does anything at any time. Maybe they never hurt children. Maybe they never lie. Maybe they always give one warning. Maybe they punish betrayal but reward loyalty. Rules create structure, and when the villain finally breaks one of their own rules, the audience understands that something inside them has truly snapped. The best villain is not just standing in the hero's way. The best villain reflects the hero. They are what the hero could become if they gave in. Same pain, different choice. Same loss, different answer. Same hunger, different line crossed. When the hero and villain mirror each other, the conflict becomes personal. The story is no longer just good versus evil. It becomes a question. What kind of person does pain turn you into? Backstory can make a villain understandable, but it should not make them harmless. Be careful not to explain away the fear. The audience can understand why the villain became this way and still be afraid of what they choose to do. The wound explains the crack. It does not excuse the knife. A real villain still has agency. They still choose. So if you want to write a villain that feels real, do not start with evil. Start with a wound. Give them a belief. Give them contradictions. Give them rules. Let them be right about one thing and horribly wrong about what they do with it. That is how you create a villain who does not just threaten the hero, but haunts the story. If you want more dark storytelling tips, horror writing, thriller hooks, and villain psychology, subscribe. We are building darker stories here.